In 1942, a woman walked into the United States Patent Office and filed one of the most significant technological inventions of the 20th century. The patent described a revolutionary communications system, one that would eventually become the backbone of every wireless technology you use today: your phone's Wi-Fi connection, your GPS navigation, Bluetooth, and spread-spectrum military communications all trace a direct bloodline back to that patent filing. The woman who filed it was turned away by the United States Navy, not because her idea was flawed, but because she was a movie star. Her name was Hedy Lamarr. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer billed her as the most beautiful woman in the world. Nobody called her an engineer. Nobody called her an inventor. She was all three. By the time the world finally acknowledged what she had done, she was 82 years old, reclusive, and nearly blind. This is the story of the most brilliant woman Hollywood ever hired, and the most thoroughly they ever buried her. Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler was born in Vienna, Austria, in 1914. Her father, Emil Kiesler, was a bank director with deep intellectual restlessness. He would take her on long walks, stopping to examine machines, asking her how she thought they might work. He raised a scientist who happened to be beautiful. By adolescence, she had the kind of face that stops a room. She also had an instinctive grasp of technical systems that left professionals unsettled. She began acting at 17, but she was already being reduced to a single physical dimension. Then came Friedrich Mandl. Mandl was one of the most dangerous men in Central Europe, an arms manufacturer who had business relationships with both Mussolini and Hitler. What followed was a 4-year education in weapons technology. Mandl obsessed over his wife accompanying him to every business dinner and technical conference. She sat at table after table while they discussed torpedoes, guidance systems, and the vulnerability of wireless military signals to enemy jamming. She absorbed everything, and she was planning her escape from the moment the honeymoon ended. In 1937, she disguised herself as a maid and slipped away from the household. She took nothing Mandl had paid for. In London, she encountered Louis B. Mayer. By the time their ship reached New York, she had a contract for $500 a week. She was considerably more calculating than anyone who had looked only at her face would have anticipated. Mayer also gave her a new name. Hedwig Kiesler became Hedy Lamarr. He was, she observed later with characteristic dryness, renaming a product. Hollywood in the late 1930s was a mechanism for producing and selling a very specific kind of female image. The studios understood, with the cold clarity of any industrial enterprise, that audiences responded to certain combinations of physical beauty and performed vulnerability. And they deployed those combinations with the efficiency of an assembly line. Hedy Lamarr was given roles that showcased her face and her figure. She was given costumes, lighting, camera angles, all optimized to produce the maximum impression of decorative perfection. She was almost never given a script that required her to demonstrate intelligence. She found this arrangement professionally frustrating and personally insulting. But she was also a practical woman who had survived a controlling marriage and a Nazi-adjacent social world by understanding power clearly. She played the game, she showed up, she delivered what the studio needed. She became, by the early 1940s, one of the most recognizable faces in American cinema. And in her spare time, she worked in her Inventors workshop. The workshop was a room in her home that she had fitted out with drafting tables, technical manuals, and equipment. She held an Inventors kit from the Aviation Corporation of America. She was not dabbling, she was not playing at invention as a charming hobby. She was working, seriously and systematically, on technical problems that interested her, with the concentration of someone who had always known their real vocation. She had been working, specifically, on the problem of torpedo guidance. By 1940, German U-boats were devastating Allied shipping in the Atlantic. The Allies desperately needed an effective response. Radio-guided torpedoes had a crippling vulnerability. The Germans could jam the frequencies. Hedy Lamarr understood the vulnerability intuitively. The solution she developed, working in partnership with avant-garde composer George Antheil, was frequency-hopping spread spectrum. Instead of transmitting on a single fixed frequency, the transmitter and receiver would hop synchronously between multiple frequencies in a pattern that was essentially random. The weapon would follow its guidance to the target regardless of enemy interference. Together they applied for United States Patent 2,292,387. What happened next is the part of this story that should make you angry. The Navy's response was dismissal, grounded primarily in the fact that the inventor was a movie actress. What would a woman who appeared in movies know about military communications? The answer was everything. In 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, United States Navy ships used frequency-hopping spread spectrum technology. The technology they used was, in all essential respects, the system described in Patent 2,292,387. The Navy had rediscovered it without any acknowledgement. Hedy Lamarr was 48 years old that October. The studio system that had built her had essentially finished with her. She almost certainly did not know that the Navy was using her invention to manage one of the most dangerous confrontations in Cold War history. Nobody told her. The bitterness that characterized the later decades of Hedy Lamarr's life was not vanity about fading fame or nostalgia for Hollywood glamour. It was the specific, corrosive bitterness of a person who knows precisely what they contributed and has watched the world benefit from that contribution. She was systematically refused acknowledgement. She gave interviews in the 1990s in which she was direct about this in ways that made her interviewers uncomfortable. The technology industry had, by that decade, built an entire civilization on spread-spectrum communications. The Wi-Fi in every home, the Bluetooth in every device, the GPS in every car, all of it descended from a principle she had worked out. She worked in an Inventors workshop in Hollywood while the studio was preparing her next publicity shoot. She had never been paid or acknowledged. She had never been invited to any conferences or product launches that celebrated the technology she had invented. When engineers were asked about the origins of spread-spectrum communications in the 1980s, her name did not appear in their answers. The origin story involved a woman who looked like Hedy Lamarr, and that made the story seem implausible to the people who controlled technical history. This is how erasure works. It is more often simply the failure, repeated across decades, to take something seriously enough to remember it. In 1997, the Electronic Frontier Foundation gave Hedy Lamarr its Pioneer Award. She was 82 years old. She accepted it over the phone because she could not travel. The report is that she said, "Finally, it's about time." The following year, she received the Inventor of the Year award from the Vienna University of Technology. She was the first woman to receive it. She died on January 19, 2000 in Casselberry, Florida. She was 85 years old. Her estate was modest. She left instructions that her ashes were to be spread in the Vienna woods, where her father had taught her to ask how things work. Frequency hopping spread spectrum is not a historical curiosity. It is a foundational architectural principle of modern wireless communication. Code division, multiple access. The technology that underlies modern mobile networks is a direct descendant of her invention. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and the global positioning system all use techniques derived from the same principle she established. The market value of this industry is measured in trillions. Almost everyone on Earth who owns a phone depends on patent 2,292,387. The woman who invented it died with an estate valued at a fraction of what she was owed. There is a constant emphasis on the tension between her beauty and her intelligence, as though these were naturally opposing forces. The assumption that beauty and intelligence compete for the same space in a woman allowed the Navy to dismiss her at 1942. Hedy Lamarr was remarkable because a person of extraordinary technical genius spent 4 decades having that genius ignored. She never stopped inventing. She developed concepts for traffic lights, hearing aids, and even redesigned the nose cone of the Concorde. She spent 30 years filing patents and writing technical proposals that went almost universally unread. She wanted to be taken seriously. When you use your phone to navigate or connect to Wi-Fi, the chain of engineering runs through a specific human being, a woman who escaped terror at 23 with nothing but her memory and her nerve, working in a room no one knew existed. They looked at the name on the paperwork and saw a movie star. They were, without question, the least perceptive people in the room. Hedy Lamarr's ashes rest in the Vienna woods. Most people walking past the monument have a device in their pocket that works because of her. Most of them do not know her name. She deserves better than that.